Welcome to the High Point, Get to the Point podcast. Action.
Oh my, it's been a day. Welcome back, Mr. Middle Miss.
Well, thank you. Welcome to you.
Yeah. You just keep things interesting, and I appreciate that about you. Thank you.
It is. This is we're with this technology thing. It's like watching a dubbed movie where your lips are moving, but I don't hear the sound at the same time. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is very interesting. Well, let's dive in here.
Let's get her done. Yeah, let's kick us off.
Well, for years, VMware, how random based on what we've just been talking about, but for years, VMware has been synonymous with virtualization. Recent changes have IT leaders asking questions and exploring new strategies.
This is a great topic. I think it's going to be fun. So today on Get to the Point, we're going to dive in to what is happening with VMware and related server cost escalation, and what leaders need to know to make smart decisions in this space as they evolve. This is
Get to the point.
Welcome to Get to the Point podcast. This is a podcast where we talk to real IT people about real IT issues, and we try to dig into the why behind the tech that's all around us all the time and try to make it a little bit more human. I'm Andy Middlemiss.
And I'm Brandy Mentley. Today, we're joined by Brian Bensen, a sales engineer at High Point Networks. He's been here since 2018, and Brian specializes in helping organizations architect and understand their on-premise and cloud solutions, servers, storage, virtualization, backup, business continuity. Oof, I'm really struggling on these today, and more. When the infrastructure conversation gets complex, Brian is the person in the room who makes it make sense. Brian, thank you so much for being here. Tell me something good, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for inviting me to this. So my good news for today is going to start off with something bad but turn good. So just recently in Bismarck, which is where I'm from, we've had like a series of fires. So there was a big apartment complex that was on fire last night and ended up crumbling to the ground. And there's been multiple house fires around here. Not sure if it's just from the dry weather, people leaving grills on, whatever. I'm happy that when I went home for lunch today, my house is still standing. So I'm very happy to see that. I'm very saddened and everything for the people that have lost their homes here. It's kind of a travesty for, tragedy on, the fires and everything that are going on. But I'm feeling pretty good about just having my house right now.
Wow. Yeah. Well, our hearts go out to those who are affected by that there in Bismarck, and we certainly hope everyone's safe and gets the help that they need. Thank you for sharing that, Brian. Today, I do want to start off, Brian, just for our listeners, that our job today, our goal today is not to bash VMware. I need that to be known. Our job today isn't to tell you which way to go. Our job is just to kind of, obviously there's some things out in the industry right now and some uncertainty, and our job is to try and clear up some of that uncertainty for our listeners. And so, Brian, obviously VMware has been the gold standard for virtualization. I think it still is. But can you kind of just talk a little bit about VMware, what it built and why it matters?
Yeah, for sure. So an interesting note. VMware started in 1999, so that was 2 years after I graduated from high school. So it's been around for a while. It started as just VMware Workstation. So this was something you could load on your computer. You could spin up little virtual machines, probably more commonly used for like test labs, development stuff. Evolved into the server realm a couple years later, where they came out with ESXi and GSX at the time. And then it just blossomed from there. So really what made this popular, back in that day was everybody had a physical server for everything. So you were buying a server when you needed to have an application that had a web server, a file server, a database server, a this server, a that server. Everything had to have its own physical presence. So not only was the cost for servers, going to be expensive for whatever product you're looking at, but think about all the rack space, the power, the cooling, and the cabling, just everything around the data center that you would have to supply, to also host that in such a physical format. So what VMware did to the world is they said, hey, let's invest in servers, but let's utilize those resources better. Now on a single server, I can have a few virtual machines running on there. I can split the resources up, and I can have them running, in a fashion where I'm getting better, better purchase of hardware, better utilization of resources, to where I'm not having to have 2 racks full of servers to run things anymore. I made it maybe just a half a rack now. So it really kind of condensed the architecture of infrastructure, for environments, and also management. I think management took a huge step to manage your infrastructure. Again, when you had all physical servers before, it was individually addressing each one, and making sure that everything was good on that. When you had everything under that one umbrella, it made it easier to manage. I saw all my virtual machines. I could manage them from this single pane of glass. I could just handle things so much better. So I think from the IT administration perspective, VMware just took a huge step for not only condensing that footprint in the data center, but management as a whole just became so much better and easier.
Very cool.
Interesting. I remember back in, I guess, probably early 2000s when, people really started adopting this virtualization strategy, and you'd go into a data center that, all of a sudden it's like half empty, just because of all of the rack space that they would save. It really, really was one of those pivotal, revolutionary kinds of technology swings. So that's cool. So more recent history, VMware was acquired by Broadcom, and they have made some very specific business decisions about how they wanted to go to market. And I think they were even very just public and very upfront about, hey, not everybody is going to take this ride with us, and that's okay. But they made some business decisions around their pricing models and et cetera, and it's really shaken things up in the industry. And so there's a lot of competing technologies trying to figure out how they can be the path forward and capture some of the share that people are not going to take that road with VM. Talk a little bit about what happened. What was the impact? What's the fallout from all of that and those business decisions that they made with the acquisition?
So it was right at the end of 2023, Broadcom purchased VMware for right around $69 billion. So very large purchase. And what they did was they really changed the footprint of what VMware offered. So I guess prior to Broadcom, VMware had over 160 different types of products and licenses that they offered to their consumers. 160. Now, I would say a lot of the customer base that we deal with such a very small, subset of those products. But I think that also speaks for the majority of probably the world, right? There weren't as many, unless if you're the larger enterprises that would invest in a lot more of the VMware products out there. So what happened is when Broadcom bought VMware, they significantly shrunk that footprint down to, I think it was 4. So they had 4 offerings, and we went from 160 down to 4. And again, so those started, with in Essentials, a standard, and then they had a couple different foundation platforms. And really what that was trying to do is just have a subset of licenses that would apply for small business, medium business, and maybe more your enterprise. But it also changed on how you purchase that too. So we went from kind of a perpetual type license structure to now subscription, which follow the suit of everybody,
Everybody.
Yeah, everybody's doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was just a matter of time before something changed there. It just kind of all happened at the same time with this. So we went now we're subscription based, which, in the long haul, generally you're spending a little bit more when you go with subscription based. But a lot of people saw increases, year one. There was, and again, it's because you're likely seeing a subscription. You're not doing an investment in a perpetual with renewals, anymore. So, I mean, there was just a flat out increase, no matter how you price, whatever it is that we have. But people did their 1 year, or 3 year commitments on year one. But then as we got to year two, VMware shrunk the license set again. Now we don't have that small business one anymore. We're not offering that anymore. We're just going to have standard and the foundation classes, your enterprise plus type deal. So shrunk them again. So if they came up for renewal in 1 year, another price increase for them, right? Now you can't get the one that you had. We're going to make you have to buy these other ones, which cost more, but again, you sign up for a 1 year, maybe a 3 year if you got lucky. And then we go to year three, shrunk it again. Now we only offer the foundation. This is kind of where we're at today, right? We're in the mode where we really only have the two license models that they offer, their cloud foundation and their vSphere foundation. So both are their foundation set licenses. Real quick on those, basically they're called that because they include a set of products. So again, remember we talked about 160 products. They did kind of divide things out in these foundations that if you got this one, you get this, and this. If you get this one, you get everything that one had, and this, and this. Of course, price higher, because it's multiple things inside of their subscription base. But again, we saw a lot of the small businesses continually see increases, not just because of market increases, but because of, again, limiting down the licensing. If you took the low-hanging fruit when it was available, it wasn't there the next year, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where we continually saw price increases for, some of our customers, and that's definitely some of the pain points around, the VMware conversations that we've had with some customers.
Very cool. Yeah, thanks for running through that, Brian. That really helps me kind of understand a little bit about, some of the changes. And I think, the word we used earlier was uncertainty, right? It's caused a little bit of uncertainty. From what I understand, and I'll have you get into this because I know virtualization isn't going anywhere. It's kind of evolving, but from what I understand, there really isn't a one-to-one, replacement for VMware. It's not like if I go to the grocery store and they don't have the brand of ranch that I want, I just buy a different kind. At the end of the day, it might taste a little different, but I'm still getting ranch dressing at the end of the day, right? And so can you talk to me a little bit about just kind of the, again, where it's evolving to, maybe what people might want to look at as alternatives or how they might start that conversation, when they should start that conversation. But again, it's just not a one-to-one. I just can't take something else off the shelf and replace it. I think there are some different considerations that I'd love for you to walk through for us. Yeah,
for sure. And this is where it definitely dives into conversation, right? Because there's so many things that have to kind of line up to make things work correctly, for customers. So, I guess to touch base, let's just talk about hypervisors altogether. And I'm just going to go back a little more history, for everybody. So we said VMware kind of came into the market in 1999. Linux had a KVM hypervisor that came into presence around the year 2006. Hyper-V, another popular one, that's Microsoft's hypervisor, that came in around 2008. So you can see they're a little bit behind on when they came out, but those systems have been around for quite a while as well. How did they evolve? So KVM being a Linux-based hypervisor has been kind of more an open source type thing. So that worked well for places like, that wanted to do more of an open source development, of some form of hypervisor that they could come out with. I would say it hasn't been as popular, as VMware throughout that duration up until, today, right? I mean, it's going to gain popularity now, and we'll get to that. But I would say during that, mainstream VMware run, Nothing could compete with it. I mean, nobody had again, we go back to that, how easy it was to manage, your environment. Everybody loves vCenter. I don't know if I've ever heard one person say, I absolutely hate how that is. Today, everybody's like, I love how that is, but can I justify the cost around it? And I'm
Sure.
so, no KVM really had what VMware was, so there was definitely, it's been around, it just never established to what VMware could be. Hyper-V is kind of in the same suit. Hyper-V is Microsoft's hypervisor. It's been around since 2008. It's had some revisions, and it can do virtualization, but you just can't get the same thing that you can out of VMware with that. So that's always been a little bit of a limitation. Some people, though, said, we only need some limited features, and this is going to work for us. And they stuck with it. They're probably patting themselves on the back right now. But, so nothing has really evolved to date that can really compete with what VMware offers or is what most people are familiar with. And that's the other thing, too, because VMware's had such a long run, everybody's familiar with that product, and that's kind of what they use to gauge against a lot of the other products out there, too, just because that's what is and was great, was that product. So definitely a lot of time and effort being put into things today. There are, HPE has a hypervisor that they've been working, very diligently on, and they are trying to improve, what it can do to try to match, certain levels of what VMware could do. And same with a lot of those other KVM-based programs. They just evolve. But I think one of the other complications with that is support, and that's where one of the questions we look at when we do talk to customers about alternatives is definitely, is this going to work with what you have? And when I say that, it's not necessarily just saying, does it work with your servers? It's, does it work with your backup strategy? Does it work with your business continuity? Do you have managed services that only support certain types of hypervisors? And are you going to go outside of that? If you look at one of these other platforms, they may not be able to manage that for you anymore. Or even virtual appliances or applications, they may only support certain types of hypervisors. Phone systems, and again, like I said, virtual applications like firewalls or different appliances, it's all vendor supported on what, that's dictated by the vendor. So those are definitely some discovery questions that we ask when we look into that. I think understanding time is an important factor. So I think really when we have a conversation with the customer, it's really understanding, when does that VMware license for you due? Because that might be the time frame that we have to work against to get you off of that, if that's what you want to look at. Other things that we need to look at would be hardware compatibility. What is the state of your hardware? Are you looking at any type of refresh cycle, in the near future? Because that can also dictate when you might want to look at a hypervisor change. It's when you get the new hardware, stage everything up on that. On the new platform, there's still a migration. You'd have to go from the old, virtualization effort to the new, but you can do that in parallel, with the new hardware. But when's the budget cycle around that? When is that coming due, and what does that look like? So I mean, there's lots of things to digest and look into when we have calls with customers. Timelines and everything just, time has a cost on it. I guess so. I mean, it's just really understanding where you can do whatever you need to do and make sure that you can do it is really what all those discovery questions are going to kind of answer.
Yeah. I guess that's really the place to start if you're a customer. I mean, this is probably one of the more complex evolutionary things that customers have to deal with today. It's not like, hey, I can use that brand of camera or that brand of camera or that brand of, network switch or that brand of network switch. There's a lot of impacts around any decision that you make here, because it's not just to the ranch dressing anomaly. It's not just, Hidden Valley's out, I'll grab this other brand. It's basically the same, right? We just don't have that in this space. So takes a lot more thought to get there. So I guess any other just advice to our listeners, advice to customers in general about if you are evaluating where you go with your virtualization strategy, what are the first few things that are most critical to consider before you start heading down a path?
Yeah. I think it's kind of what we touched base on, just previously. It's really understanding the timelines of everything that you have, licensing costs with VMware. When does that expire? What is the current state of your hardware? Because if that's something you just bought 2 years ago, I don't think, most, CFOs are going to allow another, purchase of something new if that's what was needed. They're going to say, well, that's a 5-year expenditure. You should have 3 years left on that. Well, what can I do now? Go and you just kind of keep down the playbook, So it's really understanding timelines around everything you have, whether that be applications, licensing, or hardware, and then kind of see what makes the most sense. Sometimes, with some customers, what makes the most sense is continue with VMware. We know the cost is X amount of dollars, for your environment, but that might just be the smarter way to not only utilize the investment you have, training. I've had a lot of feedback from customers too. If I switch to something else, I feel like I got to start all over. There's going to be training. I'm going to be unfamiliar. And they don't want to go through that. So there is some efforts there too. For the customers on their side that they might have to also invest in themselves and time and money. To kind of to keep up with an alternative. So all things factored, you just have to kind of value out in what period of time and what I'm dealing with. Is that really worth switching? And that's not always true for for the customers. So we've seen it kind of go both ways. So
yeah, interesting. So to play a little game with me for a second, Brian. Just so close your eyes for just a second because I want to make an analogy here. So and picture you're standing in front of a little pond, and it's just glassy, smooth water. And in your hand, you've got a stone. Just toss that stone out. I didn't see you toss it. Oh, there you go. There you go. Good. You toss that stone out into the water. What happens when the stone hits the water?
Ripples.
Ripples. You get ripples. So if you think of that stone as a decision or a path that I'm going to take around this virtualization strategy, no matter what I do, including staying the course, I've got these ripples to deal with. It's going to impact all kinds of things. So this is just a really complex problem for customers to deal with and look ahead far enough that they can anticipate. If I do that, what are the ripples going to be? So.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I would say, again, we're open to talking to customers at any point in time. We understand some of them are short term and we really got to move on this. We can definitely do what we can, to make that work. But I would say best case scenario is start trying to tackle this, if it is something you want to look at, with a little more adequate time for planning. And especially if we kind of look at hardware, as another option that you have to invest in, we've got that also that we're dealing with, right? So there's delays on hardware in today's world, with the current state of AI data centers being, built and everything like that. So there throws more factor into, again, time, right? So time is really a key factor to how this could or may end up working for somebody.
And nothing's getting cheaper over time either these days in tech. So very interesting. Thanks for playing the game. I never did say open your eyes.
Well, if I would have left them closed for a little bit longer, I was worried they might not ever open up. So
okay, that's fair. It'll be nap time.
I did have quite a few cups of coffee this morning, so I didn't want to take that risk.
Fair enough.
We should have caught you this morning.
Yeah.
Brian, are there any, you just crack me up. I just can't even. Do you have any stories, or maybe you can share a story of somebody that maybe did it really well? How much time did they give themselves? again, I'm sure you've seen all kinds of things. I'm sure you've seen people stick with it. I'm sure you've seen people migrate off it. But is there anything that sticks out to you about someone who did it really well? Again, we don't need to name names, but just somebody who did it well. How much time do they need? Whether whether they should consult, an outside firm, when considering what their options are. Or, again, just kind of give us a little bit of like real life stories about maybe something that you've seen that's worked really well.
Yeah. I think knowing that we have, I would say, over 6 months, to plan something, I think generally seems to work a little bit better. And we've definitely come across we've been put in the position where we've had less time, as well. But I think if you have 6+ months to kind of start and try to have something finished, by that time frame, I think that's a lot more easily doable than, some other scenarios where we've only had 30 days, and unfortunately, sometimes what happens is, the customers see their renewal, because again, we talked about, how those just kept going up and up and up for some of the customers that started at the smaller licensing. This is going to be, it was the third time that they've seen an increase, and they're just, substantial increases, and it's subscription, so it's reoccurring, and they're just seeing this, and they're just thinking in their heads, they're like, I can't do this. What can I do to get off? And it's just kind of a panic mode, and you don't find that out until that time of renewal, and that's where, we'll try to be a little more proactive with some customers and just try to see if we can establish at least a 6-month, if not longer, hey, just FYI, this is kind of what this has been looking like. Maybe we can get ahead of this and we can start planning if you feel like that's the right thing. Not saying it has to be, but, all things considered, again, time is really kind of the killer in everything at this point, because it's just going to be procuring hardware or resources, making sure everybody's got the availability to do what we need to do, or you have what you need to do. It takes time to figure a lot of that stuff out. It's not stuff that all we can really figure out. There is some stuff we have to kind of push back on the customers to help out with too. A lot of customers use specific applications that we're likely not very versed in. I can't say we're an expert on engineering, applications or, of the such. So it's almost like we have to kind of have them do a little homework too, to make sure, hey, is there anything with this application that wouldn't work in the new hypervisor? So we're all kind of doing our part, right? We'll look at the system, we'll look at the hardware, we'll look at the resources, and we'll try to make sure we can account for as much as we can as far as here's what strategies you might need to look different towards or include in this, type of migration. But we also would, need to understand support from the applications, which we may have to have the customer help out with that, So, it's just, there's a lot of checking and making sure and just aligning, to make sure everything works. And just, again, I would say 6+ months is generally going to be the best way to tackle all that.
Yeah, and don't put yourself in a situation where you have to rush to a decision, because you're probably not going to make a good decision, right? So,
true.
Yeah.
For sure. Correct. Yep.
Is it that fun time yet?
I think it's the fun time.
Okay, so Brian, I think you've given us a lot of really good information today. For listeners out there, first of all, you're not alone. We highly encourage you, as Brian mentioned, to get out there, do some research, stay ahead of it, and seek out, advice and help where you can. This is the fun part of our conversation today, Brian, where we get to ask you. So if you were in the studio, we would, give you a question to read out loud. And so we want our listeners to get to know you a little bit better. And so we're going to ask you a non-technical question, and we would like you to answer it. And then you get to choose whether or not we answer that same question, or if you just get to answer it by yourself. But Andy's got a question here that he would like you to answer.
All right. This is a doozy. This is a good one. I like this. So, Brian, if you could time travel to observe only, which historical event would you want to witness, and why?
The kid part of me says go back to when the dinosaurs were here, and just kind of, see what that's like. But now as the adult, I'm just like, I would totally get eaten. I'm not the
Yeah.
fastest guy in the world. But it would be kind of cool just to see. But I'm trying to think of more of an event here. Let's see, what about an event? There's just so many events out there. One thing that did flash across my mind was maybe Woodstock would have been kind of cool to see.
Yeah.
If you're into music and kind of live stuff, I think that would have been kind of a big thing. Not saying I'm necessarily part of the flower power movement or anything, but I think it was, it was a pretty, it would have been pretty cool to see, I think.
When I think
I like
flower
it.
child, I think Brian Benson.
Yeah, that's absolutely what came to my mind, Brian.
I kind of have that kind of face, right? So,
Oh, shit.
well, I am kind of curious. I'd like to hear what other kind of events maybe people would like to visit. So I'm gonna reverse that right back to you guys.
Okay.
Let's hear it.
Okay.
You pick who goes first.
Yeah.
Oh, let's go, Brandy.
Good choice. I'm thinking.
Pick Andy. I agree with you. There have been so many things in history that would be really cool to see. I think for me, it would be either because I've never seen like when the first spaceship launched. That'd be, kind of cool. Or when they landed on the moon, that'd be kind of cool. Like I think about those events in history, but then there's so many. I agree that, geez, where would you even begin? But I'm going to go with those two.
Okay, I like that. Good answers. I think
All around
I
space.
would all around space stuff. Okay,
Yep.
I think I would want to go back and witness the invention of the dab. I think that's what I would want to do.
I thought you invented the dab already.
Well, yeah, I haven't claimed it yet. But.
Oh, Brian, if you only knew, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for tolerating our last question. I genuinely appreciate the insight that you bring to this. And I think listening to you, knowing you as a person, you really do take the time to guide people or do your best to guide people in a direction that makes sense for them. And from what I hear, from what you're saying here is everybody seems to be different and unique in their own way. And I think that's the key here is that there is no one size fits all. Maybe you end up staying exactly where you're at. Maybe you don't. But you're not alone and there are options out there for you if you want to consider that. So appreciate your time today just greatly and just your willingness to be that, trusted advisor for people and us today. Mr. Middlemiss, do you want to do the final subscribe?
Sure, let's do that. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. Please follow us and subscribe. Just smack that subscribe button wherever it is. Follow us on all the social media platforms and watch on highpointnetworks.com for upcoming episode alerts. And we appreciate you being here today. And remember, we're always here to help
you get
to the point. Have a great day. Thanks for joining.